It's 7. I suppose we could start on time. I'm Robin. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Bondage Basics. Anybody here for the first time? Oh, welcome. Anybody in the sex shop for the first time? Oh, not that. Okay. Well, welcome to the Pleasure Chest. I mean, there's a lot of great sex shops out there now. I think Pleasure Chest is definitely one of them. We aim for sex positivity to help all people work on and enjoy and feel pleasure in their bodies. Who am I? I am Robin Jennings. I've worked here for a long time. I used to work on the floor. I was the buyer here. I also, in my 20s, was a dominatrix named Mistress Mary. I now work in the adult toy industry as a consultant. I'm the co-host of the Fuck Yeah podcast, where we talk about, sex stuff, feminist stuff, queer stuff. And I'm also a pervy artist. I make, working on a giant clitoris costume right now. So I can let everybody know it has legs. Stuff like that. I do that with my company's called Slutcraft. And that's, thank you, I do like that. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, I'm a little bit excited and nervous right now. This is my first time teaching since COVID. So, thanks. I'm out in the world. So I feel good about it, and I'm also trying out new things like technology and stuff like that. I mean, I've used technology before. It's not my first time, but, all that stuff. And I am also interested in who you guys are. It's a pretty small class, so we can make it pretty conversational, and I'm interested in what you guys are looking to learn today. It's a basics class, but if, we can take it in whatever kind of direction. I mean, I do have a whole PDF. So anybody want to say, what are you hoping to learn today? Yes.
Okay, my name is Carmen. I'm also a podcaster too.
Oh, what's your podcast?
It's called Y Tu Novio.
Okay.
Only the title is in Spanish, but basically it's a podcast about love, relationships, sex, and the
Great.
hustle. And I want to learn just, safe practices. I've never done bondage, and I'm also about to turn 30, so I feel like I'm in this weird space where I'm like, I need to do things. So yeah, I'm open to it, so yeah.
Great, you're in the perfect place. Anybody else want to share what you're looking for? Similar? Looking to get started into bondage. We're going to talk a lot of safe practices. I don't want anybody getting hurt. And we're talking, let's talk about this first. We are going to make a safe space here together, and to do that, I use this acronym. We're going to be confidential with each other, like AA or whatever. Let's not, or if we see each other out on the street, be like, hey, how's the bondage going? Unless it seems, appropriate, like we're not with mom or whatever. We're going to be observant rather than say reactive. So maybe you might hear somebody say something that you're like, wow, that's fucking weird. We're not going to yuck other people's yums. You could be like, wow, I have strong feelings towards this person's fantasy. I wonder what's going on with that. And we'll also be curious about ourselves, our own fantasies, and about others. We're coming with love and openness and kindness today. So just remember, what we'll cover today. First, we're going to talk about consent, the goddess of BDSM, and the whole reason why BDSM and kinkiness can even exist. And then her best friend and soulmate negotiation and dynamics. What is bondage? We'll see what Webster says. Not really. bondage safety, types of bondage, and then we'll do some basic rope ties, and then a little bit of how to integrate bondage into your kinky play, and then questions. But questions can happen at any time, for any reason. Does that all feel? I'm going fast. I'm like really excited to be here, guys. I also, writing this class and making this, rediscovered my love for, I mean, I've always loved it, but I'm just like, bondage. Oh, bondage. Okay, consent. Consent is more than the absence of a no. The definition of consent has evolved and it continues to evolve. So this is something I think, especially if you're a kinky person, well, anybody, we have to keep up on this sort of thing, right? So what is consent nowadays? Consent is reversible. It can be withdrawn at any time for any reason. No is a complete sentence. A safe word is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify why you withdraw consent. It is a verb. It's something we're doing in the present. It can stop at any moment. It's not a one-time agreement that we're bound to. All participants have the right to change their minds, set new boundaries, and withdraw consent. Consent is informed. It means all participants know what they're getting into. Everyone has a clear understanding of the activities involved, their potential risks, and any boundaries or limits set by the participants. It doesn't mean that kink cannot be spontaneous or exciting or surprising. But we know that, like, hey, tonight, maybe you have a long established relationship with someone, you trust them, and they say, tonight, I would love to do like some bondage, some rope ties, and this and that. But they don't have to know all of the details of, the surprising, sensual, exciting parts, but they have to know like what they're getting into. You can't trick somebody into consent or kind of, just not give them all the information. It's voluntary. Consent is free of coercion, pressure, manipulation, obligation, or force. It's a choice made by each participant without feeling obligated or required to play. So this is where like consent gets really messy when there's like power dynamics in the real world, right? We play in kink with power dynamics as play. But in the real world, you have like, Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. That power dynamic is so off that consent and the voluntary thing gets real weird. Just as an example. I don't want to get into like a whole debate about it, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Okay. Consent is embodied. A lot of people say it should be enthusiastic, but I think especially in kink, sometimes embodied is more appropriate. You may not be enthusiastic about the punishment that your dom wants to give you, but you might also very much wholeheartedly consent to it. That's part of your dynamic. So consent should be expressed with a genuine willingness and a whole body yes. It means actively and eagerly participating in the agreed upon activities rather than going along with them reluctantly. And consent, finally, is active communication. Communication should be clear and explicit before, during, and after play, including the use of negotiations, safe words, signals, and check-ins throughout the kink experience. And all of this applies to sex as well, or a lot of situations, right, where we consent. All right. And of course, if you are underage, intoxicated, unconscious, mentally, emotionally incapacitated, you cannot give consent. And without consent, kinky and sexual activities become abuse, right? And that's the big line. Consent makes kink possible. It makes bondage possible. Otherwise, you are tying somebody up against their will, and that's not okay. Okay. Any questions about consent? Anybody want to chime in about consent? Or maybe like consent's evolved even more and I haven't heard about it yet, because I would love to hear about it. I want to stay up to date. Okay. Negotiation and dynamics. All of these things, any kink class and really sex classes, I think all of this stuff is like a precursor to getting into all of the, juicy things. But really the consent aspect and the negotiation, there's so much rich, wonderful material there. It's almost like co-writing a fictional fantasy, fanfic together. So think of it in that way. Negotiation, it's not like business where you're trying to get the most you can get out of the other person in a negotiation. It's not that at all. No lawyers involved. It's a heartfelt negotiation. So all that happens in BDSM negotiation is you express your interests and boundaries. And then you actively listen to the other person's interests and boundaries. And then you combine them, right? And so it's not necessarily about like, oh, I want this and this and this to happen. It's about like, how can we together like use, it's like the Wonder Twins activate, right? Except it's not your sibling you're playing with. So your Wonder Twins activate, and then you become something kind of more fantastical than your day-to-day. And that's, I really feel like kink is the place where as adults we get to continue playing. But we can, like I have grade school kids and they're working out all of these issues right now. It's like, but we can be much more conscious about these things and not get into as much like squabbles and weird things or triggers and things like that. And that's really like, as a culture, we're becoming much more aware of our emotional triggers and our reactivity and all of these things and how to caretake for ourselves. And all of this is part of playing with partners. Even if you are a nasty bitch in session, in play, the heart is right here. This is the heart of play. This is how you know you can trust somebody and you can care for them. One thing about consent is, I heard somebody recently say in a class here to thank somebody for a no. You know, when they say, you know, are you into this, and do you like a heavy spanking? No, I actually like a very light spanking. Thank you for your no. Your no makes your yeses that much more powerful. I can trust your yes because you're giving me the no's as well. Okay, so especially if you're gonna play into like the deeper, darker shadow spaces of kink, you gotta really trust the yes. And you know, sometimes we may not feel fully like ready. You can say to somebody like, I don't have full consent for this. I'm not totally sure what I'm getting into. Can we ease into something instead? Like, I've never been tied up and spanked. It kind of makes me nervous. Or like at the dungeon that I worked at back in the day, the pro subs there would have a rule of, unless they knew the client well, I'm not going to be tied up and blindfolded and gagged all at once. You know what I mean? Like they have to be able to keep their eyes on. So there's just like different layers of it. I'm trying to slow down and talk, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so excited to be here. Okay. Does that all make sense? Am I babbling? Okay. Okay. So negotiation and dynamics. The first thing you have to do before you go and negotiate a kinky experience with anybody is investigate your own self as a kinky person. Who are you as this kinky person? You know, there's a lot of like, are you a dominant or are you a submissive? I do a whole class on negotiation and on finding your inner dom, finding your inner sub, and how to express that. But it's really like an inward type of thing, like getting into your fantasies or looking around and seeing the things that interest you. Are there certain characters in media that you're drawn to? You know, it's like I love Ursula. I haven't seen the new Mermaid movie, but Ursula, you know, 90s Ursula, like she has such badass dom bitch energy. And so she's like kind of inspiring for me. Or I also have like a bit of a like Morticia in me of just like, so drawing on those kinds of things that appeal to you can be clues into who you might be in these kinky situations. So if you can express how you like to be, what type of domination or submission does it for you, how do you like to express yourself during play, ask these of yourself so you'll be able to tell your play partner about it. And then when they tell you about themselves, you can kind of see, all right, I can see a dynamic going on here, because you want to find the tension of the situation. And then you can kind of use your play to like pull on that like taffy and really get into like, I don't know, like shit gets weird. And fun, right? Yeah, you're like, I know. So negotiation's a great part of it. We can become more verbal about our desires and our sexuality and get used to saying, you know, all the words that relate to those things. A lot of us, like, I just, you know, every time I'm gonna go to say penis, it's just like just, as you get used to it, it gets less and less awkward, and you can really start honing in on your desires and zhuzh up your dynamics. So once you've talked to each other about who you are, brainstorm together on how this dynamic can be emphasized during play. Include in your negotiations any physical limitations, emotional triggers, and preferred aftercare, and establish safe words or signals to pause or end play when needed. So let's say you are, you know, we're pretty familiar with safe words. It's a word that is out of context with whatever situation you're doing. A lot of people, like, you know, you can't say no, stop, if that's part of your play that you're gonna be also saying that. So you might say, you know, Oprah or periwinkle or whatever your agreed upon safe word is. People get really nuanced with safe words. You can also make it not a word at all. It could be a signal. You could be completely bound, blindfolded, gagged, but you're, you know, you could have something in your hand, and when you've had enough, you can drop it. You know, something like that, or have a bell, or little things that you can do. I used to, as a dom, do physical check-ins with my subs where maybe it's not appropriate for me to be like, how are you? You doing okay now? You know, when I'm supposed to be beating the shit out of them. So I would do things like, you know, I would tell them beforehand, I'm gonna squeeze your calf, you know, or I'm gonna squeeze a muscle of yours to tell you that I'm checking in on you. And that's when I want you to, like, scan your body and tell me, you know, nod yes or shake your head no, or whatever we agree upon, right? All this stuff I think is fun, in a way. It's like the pre-planning of everything. Okay, context is everything. We have to take bondage and the idea of bondage. It can't be completely out of context in the world that we live in. Bondage has had a long abusive presence in human history and continues to be used as a tool of oppression today. Bondage scenarios that include themes of law enforcement, slavery, and rape may be understandably triggering for some, include questions around boundaries, around theme, language, and implements in your negotiations. So, for example, do not assume that somebody's okay with you using handcuffs, right? It can be very triggering. So let's talk about this beforehand. Or, you know, with any of the implements, like, just run it past somebody beforehand. We don't know what somebody's personal history might be with all of these items. And kink play is incredibly intimate and can be very intense. So we want to make sure that we're going into it at least with the best we can intentions. Oh yeah, so what is bondage anyway, right? It is the B in BDSM, bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism, and the D and the S also stand for domination and submission. It's like a really intense acronym. A lot of people, including me, I prefer the word kink in general, but so bondage is a huge idea within the kink world that can be just like the act of one person tying up another one. It can also be a mental bondage or a kind of sexual bondage. So there's things like chastity devices, or a collar is not actually binding you. I mean, you could hook a collar up to something and actually restrain somebody, but that is an idea of bondage. Like, I am bound to another person, you know, and often that's going to involve like DS dynamics. But literal bondage, the act of binding someone, does not have to be within that DS kind of realm. It's basically just a tool. So I'm going to show you a bunch of the different tools, and the complicated one, ropes, we'll go over a few things on how to use them. Oh, yeah, why do we do bondage? I'm going to talk about a couple things, but I want to hear what you guys think too. I often hear it's the sense of vulnerability. It deepens the trust between the players. It allows you to just let go and receive. And I would say that's one of the really, really big ones, like especially if you have trouble just allowing your partner to give to you, bondage is a great thing. Tie those hands up. Just receive. It's a way to show devotion to another person. You know, if you're gonna clean the bathroom but your hands are tied behind your back, You're a devoted person, I appreciate that. All that effort you're putting into it. It gives you a nice squeeze. People talk about the rope hug, which actually does squeeze you in this way that will calm your nervous system. For a lot of people. Some people will have a panic attack and freak out, like, I can't be bound, right? But there is a thing about, it's kind of like a thunder blanket for dogs and stuff. Ropes can give you that sensation. And it can be used as a punishment or a reward, or it can be a medium for making art. You guys have seen like shibari and people hanging and all that stuff. It's very, especially when you're suspending someone, it is incredibly difficult to do that at all, to lift somebody up off the ground, first of all, but then also to make it so it is not painful or harmful to that person. Very, very difficult. Takes a ton of training. You have to apprentice to do it. You know. But really, like rope enthusiasts, we love a good apprenticeship, you know. Okay, safety stuff. Let's talk about safety with bondage. We live in California. You guys know. Oh! Where are you guys into bondage? Anybody? Yes.
It gives me a sense of control. So, with my disability growing up, I didn't have control of who touched my body or not. So using bondage and being a masochist, I have the power of letting somebody touch me or spank me or beat me or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that feels good.
The power of choice is incredible. Yeah. And you're the one being bound. Yeah. And I love that it's like, so many people talk about this, like being bound is freeing. It's like, humans are incredibly complicated. Yeah, what's that?
It's a pain reliever too.
Yeah, do you think it's that squeeze or are there pressure points?
I think it's like endorphins, they release and it just, I feel like a sense of high.
Yeah, you get into subspace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So subspace is this place that some people get to just with bondage, or a lot of masochists will talk about it, where you get a certain level of excitement, a certain level of endorphin release, where you go into a trance. You're like in a meditative trance. Some people are not able to speak when they're in this trance. There's also a dom space that is a little bit harder to achieve, but it's like you just get so, you turn it, it's tunnel vision on what you're doing, and you're in this like endless kind of expansive space, and that's like, wow. The best. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else love bondage? Yes.
Mine is the dom space.
The dom space?
It's trusting.
Do you love that they're trusting you? Yeah, that's an honor.
Yeah.
It's a big honor. I agree. That's really wonderful. Safety. Okay, right, so we live in California, as we all know, and earthquakes, right? So also panic attacks, or who knows, apparently flash floods are a thing, I don't know. Hurricanes, who knows what will happen. So make sure your restraints can be removed quickly. That doesn't mean you can't do super complicated rope ties, that just means you have some safety scissors nearby for anything that is gonna be strapped down like that. You know, buckles are pretty quick to release, but, oh, I forgot to get some. But I always recommend, you know, using a carabiner and then tying it to something, or using chain or whatever, so you can just like flip it off and escape your partner as quickly as possible. Clip cuffs, oh yeah, and handcuffs, like always have the keys nearby, and put them in 2 different places that you'll not forget. You get 2. I hate handcuffs. I'm going to tell you all about handcuffs. But hey, if you love handcuffs, that is great. I fucking hate them. Okay, circulation and nerve damage. Restriction around the extremities, especially the wrists, can result in numbness and tingling, and even nerve damage. Right, so we need to be careful. Always, you should be able to fit 2 fingers between any kind of ties. Zip ties, cuffs, rope, whatever. People will not, you can do ties that you can keep circulation and they still won't get up. And in general, like we're gonna do some stuff around the wrist, but you'll see the knot will end up being here on the palm of the hand, or even like over time if they pull on it, it might get into like this part of their hand. And when we do handcuff wrist ties, it'll be in between the wrists. We're not putting a knot right here or right here on the bones, or where you can see veins. You don't want a knot right here, and you don't want it on the elbows, or just, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the knot joints. And a lot of the cuffs will do a little bit higher also. And it's actually more effective to keep them restrained. Handcuffs. They're made of metal. They're not made for your comfort at all. Like, they're made, I think, to be purposely uncomfortable. So rough play at all with handcuffs, even those ones that have the fur on them, can hurt you. Never have somebody lay on their back in general on a tie, but also especially with these metal handcuffs. And always get double locking. Am I mentioning that here? I might have brought it up somewhere else. But so the cheap handcuffs, they'll lock this way, so they won't open, but they don't lock this way. And so as you play, they can notch tighter and tighter. A double locking handcuff has a thing. Oh, you do it with the key. I don't want to take it off, but you do it with the key and you turn it all the way one way, not the unlocking way, and it double locks it. It makes it so it won't go any tighter or out. So it doesn't do what it's doing right now. Does that make sense? So anyway, handcuffs, if they're like a visual thing for you, or that's your style of masochism, then go for it. But a lot of people new to bondage are like, oh, I'll just pick up some of those furry handcuffs, and they're just kind of a nightmare, in my opinion. Anybody love them? After I rip them apart? Okay, throughout play, check in with your bound partner. Check that whatever is tied up is not turning cold or changing color. Ask if they're feeling numbness, tingling, or discomfort. And if you are the one bound, let your top know if you feel any of these things. Especially like if they've done a fair amount of rope stuff and then you're like, oh, I'm starting to get tingly hands, but they did all that work. It's not worth it, you know, it's your body. You can make it up to them somehow. Not that you should have to, that's not consensual. Okay, rope burn and rope lash. So just take your time pulling the rope through, and if you have a natural fiber rope, it won't burn nearly as much as synthetic ropes like nylon. A nylon, you have to be like, oh, come on, baby, come on through, because it'll burn really fast. But synthetic, not so much. I mean, organic materials don't burn as much at all. But if you're pulling those ends, like the rope's coming through and then right at the end, they'll just go whack, you know, and like hit your sub in the face or something. It's not fun. It's a real mood killer. So watch out for your ropes. Okay. All right. Let's talk about types of restraints. Restraints are all around you. If you put your kinky glasses on, there's kinky items everywhere, especially in this place, obviously. But go to Home Depot looking for kink, okay? It is all over that store, okay? But in general, we have things at home that you can tie people up with. You don't have to buy anything. Neckties, neckties and stockings, like I love that in particular as a thing because it's just so like, I'm wearing it and then I'm gonna like restrain you with it. It's sexy. Especially I love pantyhose, I think make great gags. Okay, that's a little side from bondage, but it's like you've been wearing the pantyhose all day, you take them off and you put them in their mouth and then wrap the legs around their head and tie it. Good stuff, good stuff. It's just my thing. Scarves, belts can be good for like wrists and ankles and stuff. And then shoelaces I put on there, they're not great for restraining like larger parts of the body, but they're great for like cock and ball stuff. So I'm thinking about doing a whole class on that. Anybody else? You got something good you restrain with? Oh, you know what's kind of fun though? And like doing that kind of bully thing where you pull somebody's shirt over their head and then push them onto the bed. Maybe that's just me. But you can be inventive with the stuff you have. I mean, most like shirts and stuff, like in a pinch, you can do it. I'm sure bras make pretty good, you know, not your nice one. But anybody else got a creative one? I'm just so shy. Okay. Zip ties are kind of a fetish for some people, they're similar in my mind to handcuffs. Like, they're quick, they're easy, but they can really do damage. They are stiff, and like I have a friend who's gotten nerve damage from a zip tie before, and she doesn't feel part of her hand because of it. So it's just, be careful, same rules as with the handcuffs. Make sure you can fit the 2 fingers in there. Check on their hands, keep scissors nearby. And don't yank or twist or have them on their back or anything like that. Not too much rough play with zip ties, which I think is kind of what a lot of people think of with zip ties. Like, oh, I'm gonna do like, you know, super fun kidnapping. I'm gonna use zip ties because it's so realistic. I mean, it gets dark really fast, but you know what I mean? It's like, then you can't be rough, you know, because you're gonna hurt somebody. So that brings us to bondage tape. There are solutions in the kink world for these ideas. So I love bondage tape as a way to do quick bondage that can give you that kind of zip tie or handcuff feel. The great thing about bondage tape, it comes in a couple different colors. I used to make outfits out of this back in the day because I didn't have my own latex. It doesn't have adhesive on it. It sticks through static electricity. Would anybody like to come up and get wrapped real quick? You do, you're smiling so much. All right, what's your name?
I'm Andrew.
Andrew, nice to meet you. I'm Robin. So Andrew, will you just clap your forearms together for me? Woo. I haven't used this in a while, but it is pretty quick and easy. And doesn't take much training. So I think that's nice, but I'm worried he might get out of that.
Yeah, he needs more.
I'm gonna go this way, and then where's my safety scissors? I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna wrap it right there, and now you can sit back down. Thank you. A round of applause. So let me know if you get any tingling or anything. Let's check the two. Did I do it too tight? No, I can get fingers in there. You can try to get out if you want. You probably can, if you really try. Oh, see, don't use muscles. But you know what I love about bondage tape also is, like if you have a chair with arms and legs and stuff, like you could wrap their legs and their arms to the chair. You could wrap to bedposts. I've made outfits out of it, like I said. Like, it can be pretty cool. And I didn't know this until I came in today. They have a wide one for body wraps. So this is a step you can get into. Like mummification is like a really hardcore bondage. People use like saran wrap, duct tape, and all kinds of stuff. But bondage tape also, where you could wrap somebody's entire body. Some things about that to watch out for is when somebody's body is completely wrapped, their skin after a while can start like, there's like a weird, I don't know, is there a nurse here? There's like some shit goes wrong, okay? Like people can kind of freak out. And not just a mental way, but like a body way. So you just wanna make sure you don't keep them totally wrapped for too long, but the fun thing about it is you can start cutting holes and like opening up certain spots, you know, and then messing with them, you know? Good times, good times. Okay. Oh, the only thing about this, the bondage tape, is it does look like, you know, because it sticks to itself, like you can't just put it over your mouth, right? But you could wrap it around somebody's head. Just saying. Oh, handcuffs. I won't go over it again. You know how I feel. And I showed you the double locking one, so just use double locking if you're gonna use it at all. Okay, bondage cuffs. These are made for your comfort. These are made for your style and lots of other things. Like you can get all different, well I thought I brought some more. There's a bunch of different styles of cuffs. Like Etsy is like 50% supported on kinky people making weird bondage stuff. Okay, so you can find your style. This is made out of old bike tires. Remember that? This is so 2012 in a certain way, right? Am I right? Does it feel like Portland? But anyway, I love that. I love that stuff. And you can have furry lined ones and everything, and it's just a buckle on. Get some carabiners. I can cut you out whenever you want. I was mostly joking. Here, you cut them out. Oh, you know what I forgot about? Anyway, cuffs, they're super easy, and you can get them all different kinds of widths and lengths and everything so that you can find some that suit you. I like the cheaper ones that you can get from, sports sheets where they do the under the bed system. It's a great basic kind of bondage system if you like to do bondage on the bed, because you can just shove them between like the box spring and the mattress, and they just live there until you're ready for them. I forgot about these guys. They're called entangle ties. We make them, not by hand, but we have them made. So the nice thing about these guys is you can put this through the loop and then it tightens up. That's called a lark's head knot, and we're gonna go over that later. And then you can tie that up to something else. So as long as it's pulling away from here, it won't get too tight. But you do have to watch out for these. They can get tighter as you as you struggle. So, but this is like soft bondage, And you're like, oh, let's have some sensual bondage time, which is okay. You don't want that. Not all of us, but. Do you guys have any questions? It's all making sense? Bondage a go-go? Rope! Finally, rope. So rope is more than just a tool. It is sometimes a fetish. It's sometimes, just a tool, using it to restrain. It can be the rope hug, like we talked about. It can be an art, and it is often used as a scene booster. So bondage might be your whole thing, and that's your fetish, but it might be like, the finishing salt that you put on your scene as well. It might be there to boost your spanking thing, or whatever, or just your fucking, whatever you're doing. Sex is something to. Okay. Let's talk about how to pick your rope. Not all rope is created the same. We have a couple different materials. All right, so we're gonna look at the look of the rope, the feel of it, the material, the burn rate, that is like the rope burn, how fast it'll burn you, the stretch, and the bend ability. Not the bendability, but the ability to bend. That's just, I'm sorry, I'm like basically autistic, because I think it's hilarious. So natural fiber rope. So we have like hemp and jute. This is like the jute is the traditional kind for shibari and the traditional Japanese rope bondage. You can dye them. They have a really you can really run this across the skin quickly and it's not gonna burn you. Some rope enthusiasts get into like conditioning it and getting it super soft. You can really customize it to make it nice for you. The other thing is when you pull on it, it has no stretch at all. The nice thing about that is that when you tie knots, you'll be able to untie them. But if it has any little bit of stretch, like cotton rope, like these are made of cotton and they're very soft, but it has like a stretch to it. So when you tie that knot, you're gonna cut it off because I get so frustrated. I'm like, these fucking knots, maybe you have the patience for it, but I don't. So your knots get a little bit too tight. And so that's the main reason I feel like, I can get a clothesline at the grocery store or something. It's a little too thin because it can cut off circulation more easily, and it stretches a little bit, which makes it a pain to get those out. The other thing is the bendability. So when I bend this in half, it goes totally flat against itself. So that's gonna make a really nice knot. Tight knots, not too clumpy. So let's look at synthetic ropes. So this is a nylon rope, like you could get at the hardware store. I'm gonna bend it, and you can see, there's that hole in between. I'm going really fast. It won't bend all the way in half. So it just makes for a clumpier knot. The nice thing about it is when you cut it, you can just take a lighter and burn the ends. And then you just wanna make sure there's no sharp edges on there. So that's really convenient. With these guys, you have to either add a knot or you have to whip it, which is really just sewing it together to make the end not fray, because it'll fray forever. Oh, I put electric tape on there. These have really nice metal ends, but this is so smooth and slippery, the knots will come out pretty easily. But it looks cute, So it depends on what you're going for. Excuse me, I have a drinking problem. So, you know what movie that's from, which is a horrible movie that have you guys seen Airplane in the modern times? Okay. I watched it probably 100 times as a child, and in modern times, I'm like, what? Why would I? How? Okay. Anyway, that's what goes through my mind. Knots and ties. So we're gonna learn some really basic knots that you can apply to a lot of things. I'm gonna show them on the wrists, but you could do them on the thighs. You could do them on the ankles, forearms. You could do it, one arm to a chair, or, it's all up to you and how you apply them. It's limited only by your imagination. So the first knot is a square knot. We all know that, right? Let me show you. The square knot is just how we are going to tie things off to finish. Okay, so I have, just like you tie your shoes, you cross it over, bring one under, right? You cross it again, bring one under, and you tie it off. That's a square knot, right? Does that make sense? Easy. The second one is a lark's head, which is not really a knot, I don't think, but it's called the lark's head knot if you're a sailor, I guess. I looked it up. I was like, what is this called? Okay. Oh. So the way you do a lark's head, and this is the way I start almost every rope tie, is you get your two ends together and you pull it. Oh, it's not burning at all because it's, I'm gonna find my halfway point, and that's just a loop, and I'm gonna wrap it. Oh, I need somebody. Who wants to be tied up? Like tied up. You come on. What's your name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy, nice to meet you. All right, so give me just one arm out, please. So we're gonna have the halfway loop. I'm standing in probably a terrible place, and I'm just gonna pull this through. Pull the ends all the way through, and I'm not doing it too fast because I don't want it to go up into. Okay, that's a lark's head. That's it. So this is the beginning of almost every tie that I do. And I'm no shibari, I'm no like Midori, like bondage enthusiast, but I've tied up many people over the years, and only a few of them got away. All right, so we're gonna do a single cuff tie. So will you put your arm like this, please? Thank you. I'm gonna do it around here. So I have the lark's head. If I go this way, there's no tension, right? I'm gonna keep this up here. I'm gonna go the opposite way. And I'm not doing this tightly because I'm gonna tighten up as I go. I'm gonna go around once or twice. All right? And now, here, let's see, so they can see over here. I'm gonna take a loop, I'm gonna push two of these through, right where that knot is. 1, 2, right? So now I'm gonna do another lark's head, but I'm gonna go, I have this loop, I'm gonna pull it through. All right? Now you'll see on his wrist, it's not putting pressure right here. I'm sorry, I never asked either one of your pronouns. Is his, he,
Yeah.
him? Okay. So now what I could do is I could take this, here you can grab onto it, and I could tie this up to a bedpost or whatever, and it's only as he struggles, it's going to tighten onto the rope, not onto him, okay? Shall we do it again? I feel like rope boggles my mind. Like I'll look at those rope books and I'll be like, oh, I don't get it, So wrist up. So we start with, is your arm super tired? Okay. How long can you hold it?
I'm usually the one tying.
Cool, all right, so we are starting with our halfway point. You want to do your other wrist? Give it a rest. I'm going to pull the rope through the loop. I am not going to go this way. There's no tension that way. I'm going to go this way, but I'm not going to put a lot of tension on it. And this will just be practice with how tight you like to have your ropes or whatever. I'm going to wrap it around. And then, you know what? This is making a nice loop. I can actually put my loop through here. Let's see if that makes it a little bit nicer on your skin. I don't know if it'll tighten it. So I made the loop. Sorry, guys. I made the loop. And I'm going to pull it through. Okay? That didn't work as well. I tried to make a why do I do that in the middle of the class? Guys, how long have I been doing this? Okay, so we're back here, we wrapped it around. I'm gonna pull up under, push the rope through, right? And then pull it all the way. So what I could do, if I wanted this to just be tied off, I could send a rope under just one of the loop and do a square knot just to tie it off. But I usually, I'm not gonna do it, I usually like to just have the lark's head so that I can just take it over anywhere, you know? Does that make sense? And I will be here afterwards if you guys want to try it out, any of this stuff. All right. So now, let's try one more. Double cuff. Basic handcuff, right? So now put your two wrists together. I have my halfway point. I'm gonna do a lark's head around both. This time, my knot is gonna be between the wrists. Okay, I'm gonna wrap around once. Depending on how long my rope is, I could go for a long time. You could do it a bunch of times. I am not going to do that. Now, I'm going to put the two ropes under, so I get my loop. All right, that's not, I think he could get out of that, right? But that works pretty good, but there's too much space. So I am going to wrap it around once, maybe twice. I could lead him around with this, or I could put another lark's head through and tie it off. This is the simplest I can make it. How does that feel for you guys? Because I get real messed up with, I feel like it's like a foreign language, but if I can do it, I think you guys can do it. Do you guys feel good about that? Would you like to see it again? You guys feel good? Okay. Thank you. You were so great. What a nice bottom. So I don't know if you noticed just then, I am holding this so it won't flick him in the face. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to show you guys a magic trick. I hope you're excited. Thank you so much. Here is a very quick tie. You're going to make an M for Mistress Mary, or matriarchy, or something else. We're going to twist it once. We're going to twist it twice. We're going to put them together, and you instantly have a rope tie. What? Oh, thank you. Thank you. You want to see that one again?
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Okay. We make an M, and we're going to twist it once, twist it twice in the same direction, put them together, stick a hand through, tighten it. Wow. Pretty cool, right? Fun with rope. All right. Also, I wrote a blog that will be up on the website on Friday that has detailed pictures of how to do all three of these. Did I do the rope? I don't know. I didn't do this one. This is a secret just for you guys. Oh yeah, wait. It's a secret. Okay. Okay, so now you have tied somebody up. What are you going to do with them? Ideas? You guys have ideas, right? You have ideas? Is anybody not? Yeah, you got ideas of what you're going to do with somebody. So use negotiation to identify common desires and complementary dynamics. Intensify sensation play and power exchange. You can use it in role playing as a prop. You can use it to show devotion, or you can express your fantasies and creativity with it. So I think when somebody's tied up, it totally depends on your situation is partly what I'm trying to say. So I can't just like tell you what to do and what your kink is going to be, but there's a bunch of shit. You can blindfold somebody. I consider bondage to be a form of sensation play, just like a blindfold or something like that, because you are restricting somebody's ability to feel, you know, to touch. Not to feel, but to touch. You know, so that is, I think, a sense that is being restricted. So it's really wonderful in sensation play. And sensation play is a great way to get into kink and build that trust in a way that feels like, you know, safer to most people. But I love doing like intense sensation play where I'll get like headphones involved, blindfold. I mean, I'll be messing with smells and stuff. And then you also have them bound, and you're just really controlling this person's sensory intake. And every little thing you do to them can be very, very sensational and exciting. And it's a really great opportunity to like give that to someone as well, or to receive it. There's little things, blindfolds that I like. I actually like these foam kind of ones. They're really comfortable. And I like the kind that have the pads around. They usually restrict sight better. But there's also like, you know, it's a nice, it's fun. So I love a body candle, a massage candle. These are meant to melt at just that perfect kind of like hot shower temperature. And it's a massage oil. So you can get a little bit into that like sensation play, wax play without being like messy and obnoxious about it. I mean, it can be great, it can be great. I am like really feeling all the prejudices I have coming out, guys. I don't like handcuffs and I don't like wax. What a terrible night that would be, to be like handcuffs and wax. Okay, little things like this seem silly, but when somebody's tied up, I don't know, like even when I would do hardcore masochistic sessions, I would bring some of these silly string kind of whips in there because they're very cool. And especially if you're hot, your skin is hot and everything, it can just be nice to trace along. And then feathers are just, you know, birds know what's up. I'm getting goofy towards the end. What else do I got? But yeah, it's totally up to you in that negotiation and the dynamic. Like for me personally, I can't even tell you, I can tell you the wide range of things that I'm into, but a lot of times it depends on who I'm with. It's totally that dynamic and everything. So if you want to learn more, vibrators are a great thing to do this when they're tied up. Anyway, depends on the person. But like forced orgasm is basically just a whole fetish around being tied up and having a Hitachi, I mean, they're not called anymore, a magic wand on you, and you'd be like, sorry, you're orgasming tonight over and over. This is a fun little book with ties that you can learn if you want to get more into rope. This is one of my favorite ones because it's full, that's 12 words. It's full of pictures, and I'm a visual learner, so I need that sort of thing. And then Midori is our country's shining shibari star and a wonderful person. And their book is really nice too. It has lots of great, words. I mean, if you want to get into this shit, you can do it. I believe in you. All right. Any questions? Well, whatever bondage you end up getting into, play safe. Play consensually and stay curious. And if you want to find me, you can find me at Fuck Yeah Pod, which is my podcast on the TikToks. that's what they're called, and also Instagram. At the end. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for y'all. Or if you want to touch the ropes. You want to see some things?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you do classes
Online?
like actual interactive classes on bondage?
I haven't, but I would love to. And I'm thinking of starting to host some salons that would be like kind of skill sharing. It would be my home in my gazebo. But if you check out Fuck Yeah Pod, it's going to be all through that sort of thing. So But it's kind of, we'll see. I have a lot of ideas. But I would love to do more hands-on stuff. Here, it's a little bit different, but I would love to get like a budget to have like everybody have a little bit of rope and we can all like try on each other and do it a little more extensive. But I'm probably more of like an impact person to do hands-on. I think there's some people, I love tying people up. I wouldn't say I'm like top of the line, but I'm also, I know some enthusiasts that are very intimidating. Where they're like, "Whoop," and then you're in the air and they're like, I just tie them up and then I just try to get it as quickly as possible. And then I'm like, that's me.
Yes.
What's a good rope to start off with as a beginner?
This looks I'm very interested in this. How much is this? I'm curious. Wow, this is $35. Okay. I would say to start,
I guess material-wise too.
material-wise, so this is bamboo, which I've never seen before, but it feels like it feels really nice. I think this would be a great rope, but I've never tried bamboo, but I would assume that it's great because it's also a natural fiber. But I would try to get something that is a natural fiber, but if it's just, because they're expensive. If you want something lower priced, I ask the people here because they're really up to date on all of these. They were giving me some advice where I was like, because I was looking at one of them and it's like, it says that it's a silk rope. And she was like, that rope's great. I'm like, but it's not silk. Like, what is it made of? What do you mean silk? So, like little worms made that rope? Like, I don't think so. But apparently they're great, and it's like by one of the bigger companies. Like, these are boutique companies that are like probably selling on Etsy, and then we pick them up. So, I mean, you support the people making the natural fiber ropes are usually little tiny businesses and kinksters and things. But that's why they're more expensive also. But I think you will own it for a very long time. You know what I mean? I think it's worth it to get good rope because it's also on your skin and everything. And we think about like, all the toys and products we put on ourselves. Oh my God, I think about it. I'll be back, thanks.
Oh no.
I also want to mention to you guys, so you get 15% off tonight for coming to the class. So it's a good night to shop. But yes, anyway, invest in your rope. For rope care, and in general, if you can always put it in a drawer, but if you can hang them, at the dungeon we always hung them, you always hang your floggers and everything. Just keeps them nicer, but especially to wash them, so we would take them, I'll do it with this, when we would wash our rope, because of course, after every client we would, just tie it in a big knot, and then wash it like that, and like in a lingerie bag, and then when you hang it up to dry, just hang it up to dry, and it'll dry out great, and then I usually store them like that in a long knot, just hanging, and we would do that at the dungeon also, because you can make these really nice, you can tie them up like this, but we're a busy dungeon, we don't have time for that. But it also just, this kind of thing makes it harder to start your halfway point. You have to like really work with your rope a bunch, but if you're just finding the two ends and then folding it a couple times and then, oh my God, this always gets me. And then you just tie it in okay, I can't do it. And you tie it in a knot. And then hang it in your closet like that. That's it. And then it's ready to go. And your halfway point and everything. Yeah. Yes.
I have one question. Do you have tips for avoiding the giggles or 'cause I feel like You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna tie you up, but it's like, I find
Yes.
myself laughing sometimes. So
I think
I'm trying to get out of it.
I think it's important to be okay with the giggles. Giggles is totally normal, and there's like this mystique about kink that it's like dark and like shadow and like bleh, and menacing, and it can be funny and goofy and silly. Also, it's just play. Just think of it as playtime. And a lot of times when we're doing something new, our bodies will react by laughing sometimes. I know masochists that when they get into like a certain, like the pain will start making them hysterically laugh. So it's just some people's reaction to that. Or I know when I'm uncomfortable or trying something new, I can get giggly. Role play is that way. I do a lot of role play classes, and it's like, just accept that it's funny and just start doing it. Because I'll tell you what, arousal cuts the giggles out. As soon as you get aroused, you're like, you are a sexy nurse. I am interested in that speculum. But it's that point when you're like first starting and you're not, I think like I watch my kids play in this space, the headspace that they go into with the imagination, and when they got a good thing going on with another kid, it's very similar to what happens with kinky stuff. I mean, obviously it's different what we're doing, but the thing is that, I think that the only way we can get there as adults, the only way I can get into that fantasy space is if I'm aroused. And then all of a sudden, anything's like possible, like fantasy. I mean, it comes from that kind of root space, I think. Any other questions?
When's your next class?
Oh, thank you. I don't have any on the books, but I'm trying to get a residency going. I'm like, Manny, put me on once a month. Because now I'm like, I'm ready. I went through that so fast. I thank you for being my first back from COVID. I appreciate it. But this is supposed to be like an hour and a half long class, and I was just like, so you can play it back in like half speed and go like. But yeah, if I went too fast, or you want to go over anything, I'm here. Yeah.
How would you introduce something new? Would it be like, so I know you would discuss it with your partner, but then sometimes like in the moment they'll like say, why don't we try this? And then, you know, because they're in the moment, they think it would work, and then it'll just like not work at all.
You mean like a kinky thing or like a new idea?
Like
Yeah. I mean, you can talk. I think we just gotta, there's a thing in our culture where we barely can speak about sex, and being able to verbalize what you're saying in the moment would be amazing if you're able to, but it's so hard in the moment. So you're saying like, what if they're springing something on you, how do you handle it? Or you want to introduce something new?
If they're springing it on.
They're springing on you. I mean, you can always say like, I like using the word pause, of like, all right, can we just pause things for a moment and talk about what that actually would look like, you know? Because even when somebody will say something like, oh, I'm into spanking, it's like saying like, I live in California. Like that tells me something, but you gotta narrow it down if I'm gonna meet you somewhere, you know? So if you're into spanking, like, are you receiving, are you giving, is it within what context, how hard is it, with what, like, all of this stuff. So you could just ask for, like, let's pause for a moment and say, what does that actually mean, right? Do you have a specific example you wanna bring up?
There was a moment where I had brought home some like toys, and then I was waiting for another day to talk about it, what she was comfortable with using and what she wasn't comfortable with using, and then later that night she was in the moment and she says, oh, you know, try, you know, that certain thing you brought.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think you're ready, but she was in the moment and she was feeling it, and it just didn't sit well with her.
Okay.
Afterwards, you know, she didn't think it was gonna, you know.
That you said no, or that you did do it?
That it wasn't what she expected.
Oh, right.
The thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, like, I think there's like an aftercare conversation where you can be like, what went well and what could we change to make it better? Or how can we make it so we can ease into this new toy in a way that will work better? Because you learned a lot from that experience, right? You know what won't work with that thing. So at least you know like which direction to head with it, or maybe, I'm curious what it is. But you don't have to say. You don't have to, it's embarrassing. Even though it's a safe space. No pressure, no coercion, right? But yeah, I guess there's different ways, like you don't have to jump into the deep end at the beginning, you know, even if it's like you got a deep end toy, like you can get a hardcore flogger and not use it hardcore and just like ease into whatever it is. Like most people, the first time you put a magic wand on them, they're gonna jump across the room. You gotta work up to that. Yeah. Does that make sense? I don't know if I
What
answered.
is the magic wand?
The magic wand is the like lawnmower. It's like the riding lawnmower. It's like
Hello, vibrator. So.
yes, it is. It's like the most powerful and the best-selling vibrator year over year. Nobody even comes close since the 70s. It's like unbelievable, and they're still up there, and they're still just hotcakes, flying. And now they have rechargeable ones, they got mini ones, they got all kinds of different attachments. There's attachments. I mean, they started a whole genre. Magic wand is like the superstar. Anyway, I'm just loving it. Thinking about my waiting for me.
Question about, I don't know how to say it, but basically using like certain things to tie people up, whether it's like the bed or the wall. Is one better than the other?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I look at any kind of bed that has, I'm always like, what bondage potential is there here? You know, like, so it depends on the bed posts and everything. Most beds today, there aren't that many great beds anymore. Back in the day, like 1800s, you had posts, you know? But there's a lot of, so it just depends. But, you know, like these chairs could be great. There's just, it depends on what you're trying to, I love bedroom play, but a lot of people like to be out of the bedroom, but I'm like, comfort first. I don't want to be on a hard surface tied up. I want to be on my bed or a couch. Although, oh, you know what? There are interesting things that you can do, like this style of chair. If it has a bigger opening right here, I've stuck somebody's head through here and had a screen down here that they had to look at. And then, so they were like this, and then their knees were tied to here, and their arms were tied to here, and I was making them watch fucked up videos. I used to get paid for that! Anyway. Those are the days. Now I get paid for this. I'm just, it's a dream right now, it's a dream. So you can get creative with it. I'm trying to think of, in particular, good things. There's great things here. I love the position pillows from Liberator. Position pillows, like, I use, like, imagine a triangle that's a pillow, but they're waterproof and you can, like, take them off and machine wash them and everything. And some of them have, like, clip-on cuff things, but they're pretty weak ties, but it's just, you could clip on to that sort of thing, and that's nice. But some people, you can put, like, eye bolts. Just find a good stud to put them in. You don't want to drywall. Right. But like I have a friend that has like a firm eye bolt in the ceiling that they use for bondage. You don't really notice. It's like if you know, you know type of thing. Where I'm like, you just got random eye bolts around. I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But they also, if you get it in the stud and everything, like they have a leather sling that they can pull from there, or they'll have like rope that they'll tie to from there. So you can rig it up. I'm telling you, Home Depot is a kinky.
Like what do you?
Okay, so the hardware department, there's so many things there, like all the carabiners and all that stuff. They have rope there. I mean, I don't think they have any natural fiber rope, but if you get like a nice flexible synthetic, you could be all right. That's probably like the best way to go. But a lot of them look like rock climber type things. And I don't know, I think this is nice. Anyway, so, but also like, they have all kinds of shit that you could hit people with and all kinds of switches. Like you go to like the dowel rods and they have like flexible metal ones where I'm like, ooh, that's hardcore. You walk around there and it's interesting just if you put your kink glasses on. Yeah, even the grocery store has a couple things if you're creative. I mean, they do have the laundry rope and everything, but there's also just like, I don't know, food's interesting. People will get those like inflatable kiddie pools and just fill it with lube and oil and stuff. There's like this whole, what's it called? It was like 10 years ago, there was this thing where it's like a Japanese thing where they had this seaweed-based lubricant that was like slimy, like super viscous, and there was this whole thing of just being naked and rubbing each other's bodies. It had a name. It was a thing. It was. I think it's over now, apparently. It was like newbie. Anyway, it was there in 2010. Maybe.
How do you feel about inflatable furniture with like bondage?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we saw
interesting.
some on Amazon. We never like tried
For
it.
bondage?
Yeah, it's like inflatable, like
Sounds
bigger
awesome.
than like a triangle, but it's like a whole thing. 2 foot long, 3 foot long.
Yeah.
And it had like cuffs on it and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like with weight pressure, like
I would guess that it would do okay. I would guess, but maybe, I don't know. I would guess like you can only go so rough, probably.
Right.
Yeah, I would, because the Liberator stuff is similar, but it'll last you forever.
okay.
It's very, very well made. And like I used to be like, why would you have a sex pillow when I'm like, I have pillows? But these pillows do not change shape. Like they do not, like it will stay in a triangle.
Okay.
And then you're also not like juicing all over your pillow you're gonna sleep on. So it's like this is my sex pillow. But they, sports sheets started. They're like a pretty popular like vanilla kind of kink, like light kink. You'll see them out there they're in like all the sex shops. They're a huge company now. But they started with a sheet that it was like a fitted sheet that was kind of velvety, and then the restraints, like what's that called? Oh my god, Velcroed onto it. I'm like, Ziploc isn't right. It's like you can Ziploc onto it or Velcro onto it. So you could do any position. And I haven't seen them in a long time. Maybe they still sell them here. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we're in 2023, so like men have evolved, right? I hope. So.
No, I'm just joking. This one's very nice.
So in my world, I'm like, how can I be more dominant with you? But,
I just told you could tie me up.
Yeah, but I want to be like more.
I think it's really.
But he's also very like manly presenting.
Yes.
Man, so it's like.
It's a very interesting question, I think, to look inside yourself about, because I'm still deconstructing the level of like just general submissiveness that I have from being raised female. And it's still in the culture. They've, things have evolved. It's not where it's gonna end up. You know what I mean? I don't know how to say that. It's not, there's more evolving to do. So, but a lot of it, like, I just have there's a certain people-pleasing thing that I think a lot of people raised female have that is hard to let go of. And it's hard not to do, but if you can go a little bit past that inside, there's a mean bitch in there, like a fun, like, who's just like, what you can do is really try to think about, what do I want to see him do? What do I actually like tap into the idea of him being there to please you?
Yeah.
And not that you know, and I think the answer of what to do with him is in there. Yeah. It's a hard lifelong thing. I'm still doing, I'm like, oh my God, I just realized a whole bunch of shit. It's like a constant process of deprogramming, I think. So I think there's some programming that we're all dealing with that we have to like get a little bit past, but get selfish, I think. And you can think about your dominant character. So really like look out into media, I think, if you watch television or any of that, if you like media like that at all. But there's certain people that I'm like, you know, like sometimes I feel like a David Bowie kind of androgynous, snooty
Yeah.
dom, you know, and then other times I can, there's other kind of more visceral characters out there. I can't think of any. There's just so many different ways to be dominant also, like I have one friend who draws on like Beyonce energy of like, I am like a goddess, you know, and you are submissive to me from that point of view, you know. There's lots of ways to be. I remember the first time, like I was in the 90s, a teenager, and I got a bootleg version. We would trade VHSs back and forth. I mean, it's really old. And I got this one where there was a dominatrix on it, and it was the first time I ever saw it. I'm friends with her now, which is so crazy. She's this like older dom in the community, and she's wonderful. My idol got me into the business, but the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, she's so mean. And I told her that, and she was like, I wasn't being mean. And I was like, I know that now. But at the time, I didn't know women could be mean like that. And she was vicious. And, you know, that was her husband that she was with for, 30 years. It's an expression of love to be like a selfish bitch sometimes, you know. But talk about what kinds of, if that is your character, like you're like, I think I'm this kind of character. I want to try playing like this kind of dominant. And I have this thing where I just imagine like slapping you across the face. Like check in, make sure that that's like something that he's interested in. Or, just toss some ideas out there. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited for you guys. Your dom side going on. This is nice, guys. I like how it's like got all. I feel like it should have like a fire, like some tea and shit.